Thank you. Good morning. Thanks for joining in today. It's good morning, good evening, wherever you are, kind of. And today's session is, as you I have noticed, we are talking about Qubole with Presto uh, and Delta Lake. Basically, now Delta Lake has been quite prominent nowadays in terms of how it can be used to unleash the power of data analytics, basically. Yeah. And that is one of the reasons that we are talking about Delta Lake today. Now, we will actually cover one more concept, which is AWS Glue, which will be about the data catalog part of it. So the way that we will take this is basically I'll just take a few slides to talk about Qubole, what the Qubole architecture, and then take you from there various components in Qubole, and then Presto, how Delta Lake can be integrated with Presto, and basically AWS can quickly show you how it can be set up easily in within few minutes with Qubole with AWS Glue and Delta. So, okay, sorry, I jumped it. So just to get started, so basically one of the core concepts of Qubole, and basically with all these industry, if you see, is basically most of the companies that are the leaders in their respective areas are because they've been based on the data. They can actually do a lot of exploration of the data. They can get value of the data, and then using the data, they can actually grow much faster than what their industry peers would be. So Qubole has been working with some industry leaders like Airbnb, Netflix, Expedia, QB, Visa, Disney, Lyft. So we have on and off these customers. We have pretty large uh, had a pretty large users per se. Now, what is the life cycle of this data? Yeah? So when we talk about all of these customers actually win with data, what is the life cycle? So basically, three aspects that you look at it is learn from the past, understand the present, and predict the future. Learn from the past is something which is a reactive-based analytics where you kind of just write simple SQL queries and kind of identify what it is, what has been happening in the past. Whereas understanding the present is basically it's more real time and probably something use something like a streaming or lambda architecture, those kind of things, and then understand what is going on at this moment. And finally, the last one is predict the future, where you are kind of doing AI ML kind of stuff, where you can predict what can happen and where. So, so if you see the correlation from a technology perspective, you have business intelligence, which actually works on historical data. You have basically data exploration and analytics, where you do again real-time streaming, and again you can connect with AI and predict with the future, which is AI/ML that I just spoke about. And AI/ML is something which is based on both past and present. Past, where you can build models, and then current, where the models can be applied to, and of course the models can be trained. Moving to the next slide, these are a few other customers that I spoke before that, and the slide basically talks about the various domains or verticals, business verticals that Qubole actually caters to. Now, in present media, we have been quite often in the present media, we have been kind of mentioned in the Gartner peer reviews, where we have been rated pretty high. Then we have been mentioned in InfoWorld, Deloitte, Technology Fast, Forbes, EY Entrepreneur of the Year, and so on and so forth. And it's been a good journey, to be frank, in terms of how we have Qubole has evolved over a period of time. Now, uh, since we have spoken about what the basic concepts of big data and how companies win, we just talk about why Qubole matters. Yeah. Now, it's one of the things that Qubole stands out as compared to other ecosystems is basically it's simple, it's open, and it's secure platform. It's vendor agnostic. Most of the customers are looking for something which is not tied up to one of the cloud vendors. So we have the capability to kind of we are deployed on each of these clouds, and we can move between each of them. So we are not married to one of the cloud vendors per se. So we are pretty much agnostic. And The other thing that you see, it's not based on silos. Yeah, we have one single platforms where you can do data ingestion, processing, management, and consumption. Everything can be done in one single platform. And of course, since Qubole is built on open source, the Spark, the Prestos, the Airflows, the Hadoop, and the Hive. Yeah. So which is pretty much really open, and we contribute to it, and we actually take something which is being contributed by other ecosystem. It could be other companies or individuals who actually contribute to the Apache projects. Yeah. And we kind of uh, improve on the code base, and we contribute as well. So the second aspect is fast adoption of data lakes. Basically, what it does is with one is it relieves you out from the management of the data lakes per se, or let's say the big data environment. So it makes your self-service much more easier. I have seen an organization where a certain BI report, which takes over a week or probably much more than that, depending on what the company's layers are and hierarchy is, this can be actually done via in few hours or basically few minutes. As soon as you want something, you get it. How it can be done? It can be done at different layers. One is, of course, Qubole helps you in terms of making sure that you can query the data, but of course, it provides you with the various governance systems which make sure that okay, whoever has access, who is supposed to have access, will have access rather than everybody under the sun. That's one of the things. The other aspect is Qubole actually provides you or caters to all the personas, basically a data scientist, a data engineer, and a data analyst. Yeah. So it pretty much caters to everybody in an organization. So it's you need not kind of install. Let's suppose if you are data scientist, you need not install a Jupyter notebook, and then probably for data analyst analytics, you might be installing some other tool to pull the data and kind of doing analysis. Qubole will make sure that you are catered to all these different type of use cases. Another thing is APIs. It has pre-built integration with third-party and API so that you can integrate with your mashups and other stuff. Near zero time administration. That is what I started with. With Qubole, your administration cost is almost zero. What we have seen is it's like 200 to 1, 200 nodes to one administrator. Basically, the cost. So cost is you have a lot of cost savings uh, in terms of human resource, apart from the other cost savings that I will talk in the next one. This is workload aware auto scaling. So auto scaling is one of the features that we have seen off late in most of the environments. Yeah. But what Qubole provides you is a workload aware auto scaling, wherein the jobs which are running are aware that what is their SLA, and based on that, it will kind of scale up the resources, because scale up is always an expensive thing, because it doesn't matter how small the period to spin up new nodes, there is an additional cost to it. Let's say 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever it is. That 2 and 3 minutes, if you are spinning up 10 odd nodes, that overall adds up to 20, 30 minutes for a single node, so cumulatively. Now, what Qubole does is it makes sure that it will only bring up those nodes if it considers that the time or the money that is spent on spinning up those nodes is not that effective in terms of completing the job with the existing nodes. So it will try to compare that, do that analysis, and then only it will bring up the new nodes, else it will not. So that's a very important feature to make sure that you have a lot of cost. Then insights and reporting, we have a lot of insights and reporting on how the clusters are used, how you can backcharge your customers, and other stuff. Building provider specific optimization. Those are specific to, let's suppose, a Spark based optimization where we can do a fast SE writes. Those are something which are available. And in Presto, we have something cache, Rubik's cache, which is specific to which we have been able to. That's one. Then we have a reduced data lake cost by more than 50%. That is what we have seen in most of the organizations where Qubole is being used as compared to other ecosystems. Yeah. One is there is no hidden fees. There is straightforward pricing. We have one single pricing for all the ecosystem. Yeah. It's just a usage base. You use NX hardware and you pay an equivalent amount for that. That's called QCU in case of Qubole. Automated cluster lifecycle management, intelligent spot management, heterogeneous cluster management. All these actually helps you to make sure that your overall cost of big data is kept pretty low. Now, this is the Qubole deployment environment, or basically an architecture. You see three layers. The middle is where we call as the Qubole data plane. That is what we deploy, the Qubole. Then you have the left side where Qubole engines are kind of spinned off, and then the right side of it is basically the consumption layer where you have the different personas that I spoke about here. Now, Qubole has got various engines, as I said, which caters to all these different type of personas. Uh, Tools basically, and then Qubole engines are basically Spark, Hadoop, Presto, Hive, Airflow, TensorFlow. It can connect to TensorFlow. It can connect to something like a SageMaker. Yeah, so it can connect to a third-party ecosystem via Spark-based connectors. Yeah. So it can run those jobs over there. Then we have security, governance, and control. Security is very paramount because most of our customers are enterprise customers and Fortune 500 customers, wherein they take the security at the highest level. Yeah. And then governance, as I was talking about in the previous one, it helps you enable self-service, but enable self-service with some kind with making sure that okay, authorization is taken care first. Yeah. So whoever has access, they should get access to the data rather than unauthorized access. And that's one. Then moving to the left side again, from a security perspective, Qubole doesn't pull the data into its own platform and then do the processing. It actually runs the VMs of Spark, Hadoop, or Hive, or let's say a Presto Airflow on your VPCs basically. So when I'll just quickly show it at the end how it can be configured. But once you configure let's say in AWS, you provide the IAM roles and other stuff, it will go and spin up the clusters in your VPC. So that makes things very secure, that we are not pulling any data from your cloud into ours. And once it is there, you can write whatever code you want. You can pull the data from wherever you want. It could be a streaming, it could be enterprise applications, or pretty much anything under the sun. The right side is basically the various consumption layer. Sorry, consumers basically. It's a user-based consumer. Then you have users who can log in onto Qubole. I'll show you how they can the various aspects, but they can log in on Qubole and look into those, use those various tools to query the data, access the data. Then we have APIs where you can integrate with your mashups and the dashboards and other stuff. Then you have SDKs. We have Java and Python-based SDKs where you can use those SDKs and integrate in your code itself. And then, of course, we have ODBC, JDBC connectors, and using those, you can connect the various tools that are available, BI tools that you have, like Tableau and Looker and others. Moving on, there's a streaming challenges. I'll cover this, but I'll move to Qubole, Presto with Delta Lake and Glue. Now, what is Delta Lake? Delta Lake is essentially big data is when it started. I think, of course, big data is there for long, but when Hadoop and these ecosystems started some 14, 15 years back, it was more of a write once and read multiple times. Yeah, that's what. So it was immutable. The data was immutable, so you couldn't actually change the data. And it has been changed over a period of time when high acid came into picture in 2014, 15, around that period, which actually made sure that you can actually update the data. And high acid has been really awesome in terms of how it picked up. But as Spark picked up in terms of in-memory kind of processing, the fast processing and other stuff, I think Hive Acid being concentrated more towards, built on ORC, I think that something new was supposed to be developed and Delta Lake came into picture, which is more based on Parquet. And of course, it has got various other features in terms of how it can manage asset transactions. It's scalable metadata. The metadata is stored along with the data itself. It can do time travels. It's open source, of course. It supports both unified and batch. Unified batch along with streaming. Then there is schema evaluation, which is built in Delta Lake itself. It has got audit history, and definitely you can run your DML operations on top of the data. So it's the way it has evolved and the way the Delta Lake is being used is pretty great. Qubole supports both, that is Hive as well, Hive Acid as well as Delta Lake at this moment uh, from a compatibility perspective. Now, what is Qubole Presto? Yeah, we spoke about the various engines that Qubole has, like Spark, Presto, now Airflow, and each being catering to its own kind of ecosystem. Spark being more from batch oriented or ETL kind of jobs, Presto, which is for more of a data warehousing kind of tools. So it boosts the performance. It's a bunch of things that I have listed. Probably I'll not bore you guys with kind of talking about this, but just talking about the high levels. It Presto is something where we have built a bunch of things which improves the performance with like excuse me, dynamic filtering, fast caching, and Rubix. With Rubix, I think what we have seen and we have seen at customers is around 30 odd percentage. We have improvements in performance with Rubix cache. Smart query retries, lower cloud operation cost. We spoke about all those in the previous slides, and the same applies here as well. Ease of use, same thing that we spoke in the earlier stuff, and basically enterprise ready security, JDBC integration, Apache Ranger integration to make sure the data is secure because we are making it self-service. What is Glue? Yeah, this is interesting now. Qubole actually by default supports Hive Metastore, which is the cataloging which has all the information about the various kinds of databases, tables, and other stuff which it has. But it does support external metastores like Glue. Glue is basically an AWS-based catalog engine that uses across multiple services for data cataloging, and Glue is kind of integrated pretty much with most of the components which are there in AWS. Now, configuring Glue is pretty straightforward in case of Qubole. It's about adding a policy in AWS and making sure that Glue is in the policy which we are setting up for Qubole, and that's pretty much it. And you don't have to make a single code line of change, and you are off your way. You have Glue as your metastore. I'll quickly show a quick demo. So let me just this. Now I have few things which are opened up. I'll go to first is sorry. I'll show you what Qubole is. So I have already logged in. So Qubole has got various uh, uh, environments basically, us.qubole.com, api.qubole.com, and then yeah. And for region specific like India, you have in.qubole.com. All these are to make sure that the customer data production is kind of taken care of. Now, when you click on this left side, you can see there are a bunch of tools you have. Explore, analyze, workbench, smart query, templates, notebooks, dashboards. We have Jupyter notebooks, and then pipelines for streamings. Scheduler, we have internal scheduler, we have basically Airflow. We have different type of clusters that we can spin up. We have usage and control planners with all these various environment settings. Quickly, I'd like to show you how you can configure Qubole. So if you go to account settings, of course, there are a bunch of things that we can do here. These are the configurations that you have to. These are the trusted principal account ID and external IDs, and this is the ARN role. Sorry, that I have configured on AWS, which I have copied over here, and then this is the default location where all your logs go. Now I'll go to the IAM role, quickly explain you how it looks like. So Qubole. So if you go to the Qubole role, you can see that okay, there are a bunch of policies. We have Qubole policy, which is the first policy, which is about EC2, giving access to most of the EC2 stuff. Of course, we can have it as closed or as open as we want. Then you have Qubole cross policy. Then the third one is basically making sure that Qubole has access to S3 where it can store all your log files. And then finally, Glue one. So in Glue, you actually provide these details wherein you provide access to the role to update the database, create database, and all those you want to make sure that Qubole has access to. You can restrict if you want. Once you are done, you copy this here and into our control plane, and voila, you have it configured. Now, once you have this configured, you can run the. So there are a bunch of predefined clusters that we have. I'll actually just go to Presto because that's what we are going to talk about today. So Presto, it's in our case, Presto is basically a Trino, and we have version 3.17. By default, Presto 2.8.9 onwards, I think that's the version Delta is supported by default. So you don't have to make any specific changes to Delta to make sure that you can query the data from Delta. Go to the advanced configurations, you have your VPC, as I was talking about earlier, that you can, to make sure the data is secured, it doesn't move out of your environment. We spin up the VMs on your VPCs. Then you can have your tags and other stuff to make sure that billing and all those things is taken care of. Qubole Presto is one more important feature over here. It can be a federated query engine, wherein you can actually talk to multiple other databases like MySQL and this. This is a small example that I have set up here for connecting to MySQL. So you can pretty much query any of those. But in this case, of course, we are talking about Delta. You can do that as well. Now, once that is configured, I'll show you. Let me go to a workbench, which is used for our data query. Okay, now just before that, let me go to the S3 bucket. So this is the S3 bucket where I have the folders, and this is the Delta files table that I have created. So this is the Delta, which is happy and target. This is Delta log with the Delta log file, which is stored over there. So that's one, and let's jump to basically view quickly to see the tables over there, which we have configured. So if you go here, tables, so you have Delta files, and there's the various tables that I have created. Of course, Delta files is the one that we would be using, which is based on RK and Delta. So once you come over here to Qubole Workbench, you can query the data, and I just query the data just for making sure that we can have a quick demo. So this is the data that has been pulled from a Delta and with Clue as our metadata. So that's how easy it is, to be frank. So there's nothing much to be done, to be frank, to integrate with Glue. And second is, of course, your Delta. Delta is by default supported with Presto 2.8.9, and Qubole supports that. And one more thing that I showed is how you can do it, but you can actually integrate with something like a MySQL and other stuff where you can connect to that. So I'll stop there. Any queries, any questions that might come up, I'll happy to take those. Okay, so I have a quick query here. One which says, which asset format does Qubole support? So Qubole actually supports Hive asset, as I was talking earlier. It supports Hive asset, and the second one is it supports Delta. So Hive asset is something which was very robust, and asset which is the oldest when everything of these assets started. So that is something that is supported. And then off late, since the Delta came into picture in the last few years, of course, we do support Delta. Any other queries? I have one more query, which is how you can actually set up. Are there any specific configurations to be done for Delta? So it's not, at least in case of Presto, it is not required, but in case of Spark, yes, of course, there are few settings which are required in terms of adding those jar files, but otherwise it is not required. Okay. I'll just give few more seconds. If there are any queries, else we will call it a day. Okay, one more query that came up is basically what are the other catalog tools that are supported, like Glue? At this moment, we support Glue, but of course, there are uh, the product team is kind of looking to see, is checking how we can integrate with other ecosystem, or basically like something like a Calibra and other stuff. Uh, if if you have requirements, please let them come in and we will make sure that it reaches to the product team. So thank you everybody for joining today. It's great to have you guys here. And if you have any queries, please send out it to Qubole. You can go to the Qubole website and just drop your queries over there. Thank you.